The president-elect of Guatemala, Bernardo Arévalo, and the outgoing president, Alejandro Giammattei, started the transition and power handover process. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. announced during the Asian Leaders Summit that his country will share the bloc in 2026 in the place of Myanmar. And the African Climate Summit in Kenya moves ahead, intending to forge a common position ahead of upcoming global conferences and discuss how to finance the continent's environmental priorities. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The president-elect of Guatemala, Bernardo Arévalo, assured on Monday that he received an official proposal from the outgoing president, Alejandro Giammattei, for the governmental transition for the next January 14th, the date of the inauguration. The president-elect indicated in a press conference after the meeting that the proposal of the current president will be analyzed to organize the work schedule for the transition of power. The meeting of both politicians was supervised by the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, the OAS, Luis Almagro, in view of the increasing tension in Guatemala. The tension originates from the attempts of the Guatemalan Public Ministry to suspend the Semilla movement, which nominated Arévalo since last July the 12th, following Arévalo's second place in the first electoral round of June 25th. This is the first meeting of both after the victory of the academic in the ballot of last August 20th. On Monday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Dominican Republic, Roberto Álvarez Gil, arrived in Cuba to complete an official visit. So far, the Dominican Foreign Minister has held official talks with Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Josefina Vidal, and the Cuban President, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez. During the talks, the Cuban authorities expressed their respect and their traditional ties of friendship with the Dominican Republic and their wish to continue working for tightening bilateral, commercial, and cultural ties. Next, Álvarez Gil will meet with Deputy Prime Minister Ricardo Cabrizas and other Cuban authorities. In addition, according to his visit program, on Tuesday he will hold a round of dialogues to review and strengthen political matters and migratory issues as well. In Panama, the Single Union of Construction Workers and other social organizations marched nationwide against the concession of the mining contract. The demonstrators closed several of the main roads in the capital city of Panama. The demonstrations reject the approval of Bill number 1043 that establishes the contract between the Panamanian state and the mining company Panama. According to the leaders, the mobilizations seek to show their dissatisfaction with the high cost of living, demand decent wages, and reject the parametric reforms in the Social Security Fund. In other topics, in Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro Moros praised the closure of the fourth round of negotiations between the Colombian government and the ELN. In this way, Maduro ratified his country's willingness to contribute to peace in the neighboring country. The Venezuelan president reaffirmed that peace in Colombia is urgent and cannot be postponed in order to achieve the project of his Colombian counterpart, Gustavo Petro. He also congratulated both delegations and expressed his satisfaction for having achieved progress in terms of humanitarian dynamics and the reduction of the armed conflict.
We have ratified this with our special envoy, the General and Ambassador to Colombia, Martínez Mendoza, who read an official document from the Venezuelan government to welcome the success of these negotiations here in Venezuela, as well as with the intervention of our Chancellor Iván Gil to close this day. I think it has been a very profitable day, and I think they are making progress. They are making progress. It has been a successful, profitable day of peace for Colombia. The peace of Colombia is the peace of Venezuela. The happiness of Colombia is the happiness of Venezuela. That is why we are ready to do whatever has to be done for the peace of Colombia.
And after a meeting with the Foreign Minister Iván Gil, President Nicolás Maduro reaffirmed that the negotiation processes should be sped up in order to achieve peace for the Colombian nation.
The only thing I could say to them is that they should speed up the negotiation processes, because Colombia urgently needs peace, ask them to speed up everything. If I could transmit a feeling, if I could express a thought, a historic desire of Venezuela after 70 years of war in Colombia, on behalf of the 6 million Colombians living in Venezuela, I would tell them privately to speed up the negotiations, to reach a definitive agreement, that they should not take 3-4 years for this agreement, as happened in the negotiations between Santos and the FARC. 4, 5, 6 years, no. If they are clear that the peace is the way forward, they should speed up the process.
And while the economic war against Venezuela harmed many households, this new scenario made retired chemistry teacher Rosa to rethink her possibilities and her talents. She took academia knowledge and her crafting skills and turned her apartment into a laboratory, a factory, and family enterprise venue at the same time. Today, her cleaning products compete in local markets. Let's know more about her story thanks to the following material by our colleagues Adriana Sibori and Marcos da Silva. Enjoy.
Through our social networks, we received a message from a retired teacher.
I invite you to learn about our products, how we make them and how we produce them.
Among so many buildings, Rosa guides us to her property. In a 72 square meters apartment, she installed a handicraft factory with all the corresponding permits.
In 2016, with the economic war, there were so many queues to get flour, butter, milk, all those things. It was horrible, so I told my husband at that time, let's produce cleaning products because we are getting hit.
They started with just personal hygiene products. In 7 years, they established a whole workshop. Together with her niece, they prepared the orders. The accuracy in the combination of ingredients is the key to a perfect elaboration. The coconut oil for toilet soap. Angie already knew the business, but joined her aunt's enterprise.
As the demand for the product increased, she needed more help, more hands on deck. So here I am to support her in packaging part and soap production. We share the tasks, we collaborate well, and we are not fearful of the problems that may arise. We always look for a way to turn things around and keep on going.
The pandemic opened a new world. They collaborated with the community, they taught, they sterilized environments. Chlorine and disinfectants were in those years, and still are, some of their star products.
I am chemistry teacher, so this is easy for me to elaborate all these things. And knowledge is not for oneself. You have to share it with everyone you can. Because knowledge has to be transmitted. We Venezuelans, in spite of our weaknesses and difficulties, we always grow.
And Yulimar's trademark seems to keep on growing. The brand of the cleaning artisan can be found in every nearby store.
Marcos da Silva y Adriana Sibori, TeleSUR, Caracas.
You can find more episodes of our series Venezuela on the Move in YouTube and other platforms. Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The 43rd Summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is underway in Indonesia in the city of Jakarta. During his opening speech, the Indonesian President Joko Widodo called for the unity of the regional bloc and stressed its neutrality in the midst of the tensions between great powers. The member countries hold a plenary session while the event continues with the inaugural Asian Indo-Pacific Forum in the evening. The Asian leaders are expected to review the implementation of a 5-point consensus signed in 2021 to seek a peaceful solution to the conflict in Myanmar. The group's leaders will also focus on strengthening regional integration and expanding collaboration in key areas such as the digital and green economies. ASEAN gathers Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam.
We realize that the world is not right. The challenges ahead are increasingly difficult as a result of the struggle for influence of the major countries. But ASEAN has agreed not to be a proxy for any power and to cooperate with all for peace and prosperity.
On Tuesday, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. announced during the Asian Leaders Summit that his country will share the bloc in 2026 in the place of Myanmar, which has been led by a military junta since the 2021 coup. The announcement brings forward the Philippines' presidency by 1 year and effectively excludes Myanmar from the rotation. The head of the Myanmar military junta, Min Aung Hlaing, had not been invited to the meetings due to lack of progress on the 5-point consensus, which includes an end to the violence and dialogue among all parties to all international conflict and the internal conflict, and was agreed upon in April 2021 during an Asian meeting in Jakarta. Although the junta is not presented or represented in the summit in Jakarta, the head of Myanmar's Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kin Yu, took part in a new discussion panel and said that issues of food security and new imports from Indonesia had been discussed. Thousands of people mobilized in Skopje, the capital of Northern Macedonia, in protest against a corruption case linked to oncology drugs. The scandal erupted following a series of media reports alleging that staff at an oncology hospital were reselling expensive drugs on the black market. Among the protesters were several people who said their relatives had died after receiving placebos instead of proper chemotherapy because the drugs had been stolen. Meanwhile, last Friday, police raided the hospital and the homes of 2 staff members, confiscating documents, computers, and data drives. However, no arrests were made and no charges have been filed.
Are they trying to help people? You can see how they have been helping. They have been stealing cancer drugs and reselling them on the black market.
And now we move on to other topics. 3 dead and at least 3 missing is the partial toll of the floods registered in Spain last weekend. Cádiz, Segovia, and Tarragona are the provinces that registered the highest accumulation of rainfall on Sunday. The downpours killed 3 people. Police said a young man died after getting trapped in a lift that filled up with water. The body of another man, age 50, was found in a river near the town of Camarena, and a 3rd man died inside a flooded vehicle. The Civil Guard is currently searching for 3 missing persons, 2 of them in the province of Madrid. So far, the general forecast of the state weather agency assures that cloudy skies and precipitation will continue in most of the peninsula until after midnight. Scientists warn that extreme weather such as heat waves and storms is becoming more frequent and intense as a result of climate change caused by the burning of fossil fuels.
Yesterday was catastrophic. This is to say, we went through a fear that we had never experienced before. Everyone screaming for help, a lot of helplessness. I would define this with a lot of helplessness, because everyone was screaming and we couldn't go out to help them.
Typhoon Haikui, the 11th typhoon this year, made landfall on Tuesday morning off the coasts of Fujian and the Gansu provinces in southeastern China, leaving at least 3 people missing. Local authorities carried out an evacuation in all maritime areas east of the city of Wuizhou in the Canton province, with thousands of boats moored and hundreds of thousands of people taking shelter. More than 500 trains in Canton and 23 sea passenger routes east of Wuizhou were cancelled as part of the prevention countermeasures. Before making landfall, Hauki passed over the Chinese island of Taiwan on Sunday with maximum sustained winds of 101 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 126 kilometers per hour. In Taiwan, more than 3,000 people were evacuated and more than 74,000 homes were left without electricity and supplies due to heavy rainfall.
Provocar destrozos en Taiwán. El primer tifón en
And we stay in China. Hong Kong's top court ruled on Tuesday in favor of recognizing same-sex civil unions, but stopped short of granting full marriage rights in a partial victory for the city's LGBTQI+ community. Over the past decade, LGBTQI+ activists in the former British colony won partial victories in the courts, overturning discriminatory government policies on visas, taxes, and housing allowances. The court gave a 2-year deadline for authorities to comply with the ruling by creating a framework, leaving the government and legislature free from opposition to decide the details, but it stopped short of ruling on full marriage equality for same-sex couples. Since Hong Kong was returned to China in 1997, it enjoys a semi-autonomous status that allows it more freedoms than mainland China, and its legal system is governed by European Union rules.
I think the first thing to say is that this is a significant judgment. It will have serious and long-term impacts on the recognition and treatment of same-sex couples here in Hong Kong and those who are coming from abroad.
TeleSUR English launches its own videos on demand site for you to go and revisit our interviews, the top stories, the special broadcastings, and more. Just go to the top left corner in our website homepage and click on the video option to access our VOD platform. And now we will have a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Israeli forces on Tuesday killed one Palestinian youth and seriously wounded another during an armed raid on a refugee camp in the northern occupied West Bank town of Tulkarem, damaging the site's infrastructure. The Palestinian Ministry of Health announced the death of Ayed Samih Khaled Abu Harb, 21 years old, at 8:15 a.m. local time, saying he was shot in the head. In the assault on the refugee camp, there were several clashes between occupation troops and Palestinian resistance, and the Israeli forces destroyed roads, monuments, several homes and bridges. In the latest incident, in a wave of violence that has lasted more than a year and has reached levels not seen in the territory in nearly 2 decades.
The Israeli army stormed the refugee camp with tanks and aircraft, causing significant destruction last night. They demolished 4 shops owned by peaceful traders who were innocent. They also shattered the windows of the mosque and destroyed the street. A martyr fell, who was in front of his house, as they opened fire on him, and his brain scattered before our eyes. He was an innocent person who had done nothing wrong.
The African Climate Summit in Kenya moves ahead, intending to forge a common position ahead of upcoming global conferences and discuss how to finance the continent's environmental priorities. At the start of the summit, the President of Kenya, William Ruto, called for all African states to unite to fight the climate crisis, which he described as the greatest challenge to the existence of all living beings. The event, convened by the African Union, will take place in Nairobi until the 6th of September. More than 20 heads of state and government, as well as leaders of regional and international organizations, are expected to participate. At the end of the summit, the adoption of the so-called Nairobi Declaration, which seeks to articulate a common African position for different global fora, is foreseen. During his speech, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for making Africa a renewable energy superpower.
With adequate access to financial resources at reasonable cost and technological support, renewables could dramatically boost economies, grow new industries, create jobs and drive development, including by reaching the over 600 million Africans living without access to power. Renewable energy could be the African miracle, but we must make it happen. We must all work together for Africa to become a renewable energy superpower.
In Kenya, U.S. envoy John Kerry says that he hopes China and the U.S. can come together on climate at the African Climate Conference in Nairobi.
That China and the United States, the two largest economies in the world, the two largest emitters in the world. I hope we could come together because I think it would be an important, providing it's substantive, and we're going to agree to do some things, I think it would be very important to other workings of the COP and to the prospects for winning this battle, which we need to do.
Niger's military-appointed prime minister on Monday said he believed there is hope of reaching an agreement with the West African bloc, ECOWAS, which has threatened to use force to restore civilian rule after the July coup d'etat. The Economic Community of West African States has imposed hefty sanctions against Niger after rebel soldiers on July 26 overthrew the president Mohamed Bazoum. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, who is also the current chairman of ECOWAS, proposed last Thursday a 9-month period like the one his country experienced in the late 1990s. The military rulers so far have not responded to the suggestions, having previously spoken of a 3-year hand-back period.
The French forces are in an illegal position, and I think that the exchanges that are underway should very quickly enable these forces to withdraw from our country. We have received delegations on 4 occasions. We ourselves have made a visit, and we are confident that in a few days' time we will be able to reach an agreement very quickly so that all these measures can be lifted. As a responsible government, we respect the country to come under attack at any time, which is a pity. All the necessary measures have been taken so that we can defend ourselves. You should know that. And I mean every measure, because that would be an unjust war.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.